So then you, at some point, you became interested in the Massachusetts Medical Society.
Oh, that was that.
What led up to that?
I got interested in Massachusetts Medical Society almost immediately after I went to practice. I came out to Concord, which is where I was living and where I wanted to practice, and I went and talked to people in various practices. And to a man, and it was men, to a man, I was told by these various groups in various polite, impolite ways, we can't take on a woman as part of an internal medicine group. If you wanted to do pediatrics, there are some pediatric places, and we have a few women who are starting to work with our people in gynecology and so forth, but there is no way the Concord community would accept having cross coverage from a woman doctor. And we're not talking 1940s, we're talking 1983. When I went, and so I looked, I broadened where I was looking out, and I looked at practices that had women doctors, because they were partially pediatric internal medicine practices, and some of them had women internists. And the one place I was about to sign with, which will remain nameless, I went and I had a series of interviews, and I was told that certain things would be the policy, and they would be sending me the thing to sign about that I was joining their group. And when the legal document came, it bore very little resemblance to what we had talked about. They wanted me to be on call double time while their patients got used to a woman doctor being in their practice, and just many things. The salary was, eventually it would reach what they had said was going to be the salary, but there would be a 2-year interval or something in which they would see how I was doing before they would guarantee that would eventually be my salary. And so I took it to a lawyer and I said, does this make any sense? Is this standard to have all these conditions about extra years before you get paid what they said they were going to pay you or whatever? I was strongly advised to tear up the contract and say thanks but no thanks, which is what I did. And along about the time I was going to accept a job all the way in Boston, which would have been a major hassle for me, I got a phone call out of the clear blue sky. Somebody said, hello, are you Ginger? This is Elmer Purcell. And I never forgot what he said his name is, Elmer Purcell. And he turned out to be a lovely man from Arkansas originally, who was an internist in in Concord, who had, and he had somebody working with him who had decided with several other men that they wanted to leave the various people they were working with and form their own group. And they were one of the groups that had been exceptionally rude when I went to interview with them. And they left, and he was now being left without anybody to work with. So somebody had given him my name, and he, as somebody who was looking for a place in Concord, so he called me up, and he was a fabulous mentor, a wonderful fatherly figure, very wise man about dealing with people and understanding they were people, not diseases with arms and legs. We hit it off extremely well. And he was a great guy. And he also, at the time, was in the leadership of the Middlesex District of the Mass Medical Society. So I came to Concord to work with him, and I'd been there about 2 weeks, and this red-headed guy came charging down the hall. And I was walking with a woman, another woman who had just come to Emerson at the same time I had. And he said, are you the 2 new women doctors at the hospital? And we said yes, and he said, you've got to join the Mass Medical Society. And we didn't even know him. And it was Rusty Van Houten.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say that.
Well, the red hair. It was Rusty Van Houten, and he just insisted we had to join the Mass Medical Society, and we should be if we were leaders in coming out to Emerson where there were, they looked askance at women doctors, according to him. He was the head of radiology at Emerson at the time. He thought we should join the women's, he would put our names in to be on the women's committee at the Mass Medical Society. So we gave it a try, and that's how I got involved in the medical society. And because Elmer, my partner, very soon thereafter was president of the Middlesex Central District, he went to all the board meetings, and he took me with him. With the idea that if I got paged, I would go back and cover our patients. But so I started coming to board meetings and sitting in the back when I didn't really have an official role there, but he thought I should learn about how organized medicine worked.
Okay, go ahead.
And meanwhile,
It may be difficult for you to talk about yourself, but it seems to me that you have some very unique qualities that enable you to succeed with people. That was important to medicine. But what do you think that chemistry is all about?
well, I would put it that I've had life experiences that made it easier for me to be very comfortable in situations like the Mass Medical Society. In the first place, I'd spent my entire adult life living surrounded by males, and it definitely that made it easier. And I also got involved in that time period with some other organizations that were primarily for women doctors, where the emphasis was much more how to break through glass ceilings and how terrible the old days were and how they needed to be reformed. And I was more comfortable with dealing with the issues about how do you think about improving medical care for the patients or medical care for the doctors, but not in terms of it being necessarily a sexual division.
Yes.
And so those weren't my big issues. I had, other than the fact that I had initially some trouble getting into medical school, and then this round of problems getting to practice right in my own home community, which is what I'd gone to medical school to do. But other than that, I hadn't ever run into anybody who was personally or generically insulting or anything to me. So I was more comfortable in the big mixed groups.
Because I almost sensed that there was a need,
Right.
and that some of the boys, so to speak, actually needed someone to kind of,
Including,
a little maternal kind of force.
you know, in
within
many
them.
ways, being a woman doctor was easier. At one point, I left Concord for 3 years and went and ran the outpatient services for the West Roxbury VA. They needed somebody to lead all of their outpatient services, which included their emergency room, all of their outpatient visits, running all the subspecialty clinics administratively. And I was pretty good at at organizing people, let me put it that way, more than administrating. And my kids used to kid me or give me a hard time because when we traveled, I made them all wear the same colored shirt every day. One day they were all wearing green, one day they were all wearing blue or whatever, because it was the only, well, particularly when they're young, if you're going to an amusement park or something, if you're only looking for yellow shirts, it's much easier to see where your kids are, or green or whatever. But thinking about how to make organizations
Yes.
work more successfully, and get everybody through it without anybody feeling like they were being bossed around or put down or whatever. So I enjoyed those sorts of things. I enjoyed trying to make things work. 6 months after that group of 5 guys who had been so unpleasant when I went to talk to them. After I'd been in practice with Elmer, my practice filled in about 3 months flat, and it wasn't all women. And I came, I had 3 different sets, not sets, but 3 different sets of people sent an emissary to talk about to them about, now that I was in practice and so forth, they were thinking that maybe it would make sense to have a woman in their practice. I'd gotten a lot of their patients, not intentionally, but you know, it had happened.
You certainly got their attention.
It got their attention. And then when I was at the VA, which I started to talk about, when I left, I had, in addition to doing all the administrating, I had a panel of patients who were my patients. And so many of them came up to me when I left and said, when I found out they were going to give me a woman doctor, I was so upset. And now I'm going to request a woman doctor because I've told you things I've never told anybody. And I think that's where the maternal piece comes in. You know, men telling me their sexual problems or their worries in life or being afraid of things. And I think,
Yes.
from talking to my sons, I mean, obviously every human being is different, but from talking to my sons and others, I think that for better or for worse, almost everybody has had a mother that lived long enough so they got to know them. And that a mother is a figure you sort of need to function in life and to whom you can tell things you don't tell anybody else. And that just made it easier for people to talk.